So good morning, everyone. This is the optional bidders conference for the request for proposals process for out of school time programming that was recently released. I'm going to go ahead, move on in the presentation. So ways to engage today. This is a webinar, so generally speaking, all the participants are muted. If for some reason any of the panelists, myself, Robert Larimore, or Greg Davis see a need to have a verbal conversation with one of you, we'll request that you unmute, but otherwise participants will be muted throughout the presentation. If you have questions, we want to make use of the question and answer features in this webinar, primarily so that we can track all of the questions. They will be posted to the FAQ page, and we want to make sure that we have a record of them. There'll be some use of the chat. We'll be sharing links in the chat. And of course, as noted, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. It's an opportunity to see who else is participating in this RFP. There might be opportunities for collaboration. That's always a great thing that we want to support. And this presentation is being recorded and it will be posted after the bidders conference by tomorrow. Okay, we have a very full agenda today. Just gonna zoom over a little bit. We're going to do a quick overview of the RFP and the OST program. We're going to touch on key dates, the organizational roles of the various entities involved in this RFP. We'll cover the OST program strategies and models. That will be just a quick highlight. The majority of that information is found in the RFP. We'll review applicant eligibility, OST program site identification, the payment structure for this RFP, briefly discuss how providers and applicants can submit additional questions regarding the RFP. And then the final portion of the presentation will be regarding the actual application process itself, which will include a review and brief demo of the online submission platform. Okay, so one thing I also do want to mention is throughout the presentation, you will see that at the bottom of many of the slides, there are references to the relevant page numbers in the RFP. Again, detailed information is contained within the RFP. And if that information is not clear or if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A section of this webinar, or there will be, we will just cover later how you can submit questions via Cognito form. So PHMC released this request for proposals on February 28th. It was released on behalf of the City of Philadelphia's Office of Children and Families and Department of Human Services. We'll be referring to that constellation of organizations, the City of Philadelphia, throughout this presentation. The RFP and related information is available at the philaocfost.org website, which Greg has put into the chat for all of you if you would like to use that link. This is an open and competitive solicitation for city-funded OST programming throughout Philadelphia. Just a reminder that any currently funded organizations that are interested in continuing to serve current locations in the 2023-2024 school year will need to apply. Okay. The period of performance for this RFP, this will be a 4-year, so this solicitation will cover 4 years, starting in fiscal year 2023-2024. Each year, providers must participate in an annual performance review and contract renewal process. So though this RFP will confer authority for PHMC to contract with organizations for 4 years, please be mindful that there are requirements that must be met in order for those contracts to renew each year. The initial contract term will be for the 2023-2024 school year. In the following fiscal years, it is anticipated that providers will be contracted for a full 12 months of service, inclusive of summer programming. And for just a note about this summer, the summer of 2023, current providers who are currently part of the OST network, PHMC will be continuing with that current OST network for this summer. And please refer to the email that was sent on 2/9/23 if you have questions, or there's additional information that was sent out on Friday as part of the slides from the February provider presentation. For new providers and any new sites that are selected during this RFP process, startup awards will be available to support school year preparation that occurs during the summer. And there's information, I'm not going to read this each time, but I just want to point out as we're going through, at the bottom of the slide, you'll see that this references information contained in the RFP on page 9 and pages 47 through 48. Okay, key dates. We've released the RFP on February 28th. We're currently in the RFP Bidders Conference. This is an optional conference, but we're glad to see all of you here today who have joined us, which is fabulous. The deadline for application questions, you can submit them again today in the Q&A portion of this webinar, and you can also submit them via Cognito, on a Cognito link, which we will be discussing a little bit later in the presentation. Oops, sorry, dates are not on the screen. Thank you. I must have clicked too far. There we go. Thank you, Joy. Thank you. So the PHMC will be posting the answers to any questions that are submitted by or on or before Friday, March 17th. That will be posted on the website, the PHLA OCF OST website. There is a FAQ section within the funding announcements section of the website. Proposals are due on Friday, March 31st by 5 p.m. No late submissions will be accepted. The online submission portal will close. Even if you are in the midst of a submission, you will not be able to submit it after 5 p.m. So please be mindful of that. And please be mindful of the fact that the submission portal on that Friday, there may be significant traffic. And every effort should be made to submit information earlier than the 31st. And award notifications we anticipate in June 2023. Right. The organizations, the entities involved in this RFP are the City of Philadelphia. Services purchased via this RFP are under the auspices of the City of Philadelphia's Office of Children and Families and the Department of Human Services. And the city's role is to oversee the OST system in its collaboration with PHMC. PHMC, Public Health Management Corporation, serves as the fiscal and contracting intermediary for this project. We collaborate with the city to facilitate and monitor continuous quality improvement practices for all funded providers. And provider organizations are those organizations that will be awarded funding through this RFP. Organizations will be expected to deliver the OST program as outlined in this RFP and outlined in standard operating procedures that are issued with program contracts. And I do want to take a moment to stress some of that information. This is a publicly funded program, and as such, it is highly regulated. Applicant organizations should review the RFP program requirements, the compliance requirements, the funding structure, and the remainder of the RFP document, including the appendices, when preparing their application. If awarded funds, the organizations will be tasked with delivering an OST program that fully complies with those standard operating procedures that will be issued with the contract. The current year's SOPs, standard operating procedures, are available on the PHLA OCF OST website under provider resources. That is just a resource. Those SOPs may be adjusted or may not be identical for what will be issued for next school year, but they can help serve as a helpful reference. I think I went too far again. Thank you. Okay. An overview of the OST program. This OST program funded by the City of Philadelphia serves youth enrolled in kindergarten through 12th grade. It's delivered by community-based organizations, and it's part of the city's continuum of prevention programs and activities designed to contribute to the overall well-being and safety of youth through the access to services that promote their healthy, physical, social, educational, and emotional development. Programs are designed for all youth, particularly those who need to be diverted from or have current or previous involvement in the child welfare system. As noted, this is part of the Department of Human Services prevention programming activities. For fiscal years 2024 through 2027, the city envisions an OST system that delivers the highest quality of services to Philadelphia's most vulnerable youth and their families via a well-prepared and appropriately compensated workforce. I do want to draw attention to some information in the that relates to the final two bullets. The RFP includes information on the target population and referral and outreach expectations, which you should review in preparing your application. Providers are expected to work closely with the Department of Human Services, the community umbrella organizations, and other community agencies, as well as school leadership. For programs that operate in school district of Philadelphia schools, the expectation is that a minimum of 90% of the OST program participants will be students in that school. Principals can provide written approval to enroll up to 10% of OST participants from other schools. So that gives you some highlights around the recruitment and enrollment requirements. But again, please review the RFP. The OST system is built upon the following tenets. It's building on practices that increase quality and connect to national best practices in OST. You'll see references within the RFP to the National Institute of Out of School Time. Diversifying high quality opportunities available to youth across the city, a well-prepared and appropriately compensated workforce. You'll see reference in the RFP to minimum salary requirements. Another tenet is equitable access to programming that ensures children, youth, and families thrive. And the final two tenets reference School District of Philadelphia goals and guardrails that every student is prepared, that every student is reading at or above grade level, and every student is ready to graduate for college and career. And then also that students have a well-rounded education, including arts, athletics, and other co-curricular opportunities integrated into their school experience. The OST program strategies and models. Applicants must select a program model, which covers the grade range and age group of the students, and a strategy for each application. Significant details regarding the strategies and models and related program expectations are provided in the RFP section 2. It's a long section. It's the bulk of the RFP. We suggest that you read through that very carefully and in detail. This presentation will only touch briefly on a few highlights. One thing to note, and we'll repeat this a few times throughout the presentation, is if you are seeking to offer OST programming within a K-8 school, the expectation is that you will offer both an elementary and middle school model within that program, and that the application will require that you answer questions about both models as you're going through. Okay, the general strategy OST program is really your more typical and traditional after-school program. The expectation is that programs are operating 3 hours per day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, that it follows the school calendar and operates for at least 175 days over the course of the school year. Summer programs, this is the anticipation for the summer 2024. As I mentioned previously, summer 2023 is currently covered by the current OST network. So for summer 2024, the expectation is that programs will run for 6 weeks over the summer. Those start and end dates are identified by the City of Philadelphia in coordination with the school district, as the bulk of programs do operate in School District of Philadelphia schools. The summer program for elementary and middle school models is a full day, 7.5 hours per day, 5 days per week, Monday through Friday, for those 6 weeks of summer. For high school models, it's done in partnership with the youth workforce intermediary, and programs do operate 5 hours a day for a minimum of 4 hours per day, Monday through Friday. This slide is just jam-packed with information. What I really want to just highlight here, I'm not going to read through all this information. It is included in the RFP on pages 22 through 26. I encourage you to look through this. In addition to what's on this slide, there is additional information in the RFP. This highlights the goals, the key performance indicators, and the outcomes. What I want to highlight here is that key performance indicators are a major component of the expectations of the program and tie into data, reporting requirements, and funding activities. So it is important that organizations review those key performance indicators, have a solid understanding of them, and understand that there will be expectations to report regularly on these KPI, that the data system in use for the OST network collects information. So any awarded organization will be entering a great deal of information into the data system on these KPI, and that these are tied to the performance review that's part of the annual contracting process. The specialized strategy. Specialized strategy is really an opportunity for programs to offer more targeted and specialized programming to children and youth to expand enrichment opportunities to all children in Philadelphia. These programs are expected to operate for 2 to 3 days per week during the school year for a minimum of 6 hours each week, again, for the 40 weeks of the school year. These hours are obviously during non-school hours, but unlike the general strategy program, these might be programs that operate on evenings or weekends or after school. There is the expectation, of course, that any programs operating in the evening will not prevent youth from meeting the City of Philadelphia's current youth curfew. And also for specialized providers that are seeking to operate in School District of Philadelphia buildings, those spaces are only available in the after-school hours until 6 p.m. During the summer, the specialized programs operate for a total of 75 hours for approximately 10 days. The expectation is that at least 5 of those days are in July and 5 of those days are in August. Again, we're seeking year-round programming. Providers may operate full day or part day programs under the specialized strategy. And as with the general strategy, those start and end dates are developed in coordination with the City of Philadelphia and the school district. And specialized programs are not expected to participate in youth workforce development programs. These are the goals, key performance indicators, and outcomes for the specialized strategy. Again, I encourage you to read through this in detail in the RFP. These KPI are part of the expectations for the data entry, reporting, funding, and the annual performance review process. Okay, applicant, just everybody doesn't mind, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Nothing as fun as spending my Monday morning speaking to a screen that 60 people are watching and is being recorded. So bear with me, everyone. So applicant eligibility. To be considered for funding under this competitive solicitation, an applicant must be a private for-profit organization or a private nonprofit organization and cannot be a government agency. The applicants must have at least 1 or more years of experience running youth development programs that serve youth and their families residing in Philadelphia's most underserved communities. In addition, it's important to be aware that any organization that is awarded funds through this RFP will be expected to provide the OST program under certain parameters. It must be free and at no cost to families and youth. For the contract, it must be offered for the contracted number of participants for the program hours at the site identified for funding. The program offered must fully comply with the City of Philadelphia's OST standard operating procedures for that strategy, model, and site type awarded. Generally speaking, providers can anticipate that the SOP for the 2024 school year will align with the RFP and will be similar to the current SOP, but providers should be aware that there could be changes. And then for awarded sites that serve children in kindergarten through 8th grade under the general strategy, it's important to be aware that your organization will need to have a Pennsylvania Department of Human Services Certificate of Compliance prior to program operations. I do want to take a moment to stress those a couple of things there. For the PADHS certification, we encourage you to review information. There are links within the RFP that direct you to the state's website on PADHS certification, also referred to as licensing. And we encourage you, if you are not familiar with those standards requirements, to review that information prior to submitting an application. It's noted here that this is for general strategy providers. I just want to make a note that specialized providers who operate single purpose programs, oops, sorry, everyone, I hit my keyboard. Specialized program providers who operate single purpose programs are not required for the purposes of this RFP to secure the PADHS certification. However, I just want to note that that does not confer some kind of exemption from the city. Any organization that is providing care to children under the age of 14 in Philadelphia should be aware of PADHS regulations and should determine the applicability of those regulations to their organization's operations. OST program site identification and priorities. I just want to pause and note that we're glad to see that there's questions coming in through the Q&A feature. Please continue to submit those as shared in the chat. We do want to encourage everyone to submit questions either via this method or through Cognito. We will take a quick review of these questions towards the end of the presentation, but most will be answered in writing on the website. Okay, OST program site identification and priorities. The City of Philadelphia has identified several priorities for this RFP. This includes identifying priority zip codes and the schools within those zip codes that the City of Philadelphia and the school district has identified as targeted sites. In addition to the targeted school sites within the priority zip codes, we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that community-based organizations that have locations within these priority zip codes would be considered as priority sites as well. Okay. Next slide. In addition to the priority zip codes and the targeted school sites within those zip codes, the City of Philadelphia is prioritizing OST programming at the 20 City of Philadelphia community schools. There are some specific requirements for operating in a community school, and applicants who are interested in applying to provide OST programming at those schools should review that information in detail. So non-priority OST program sites. I know there are questions, I'm sure, already in the chat. We've received some via the website as well. The City of Philadelphia is seeking a citywide OST program. So in addition to the priority zip codes that have already been identified and the community schools, other sites will be considered for funding. These include any community-based and school district of Philadelphia locations that are outside of the priority zip codes. They will be considered for funding. OST programming at charter, parochial, and private schools will be considered for OST programming. School District of Philadelphia schools that are within the priority zip codes but are not included in the appendices or are not community schools. There are a few schools in the priority zip codes that you will see do not appear on the list of the targeted School District of Philadelphia sites within those zip codes. That is because the school district has identified that those schools may already have existing after-school programming and supports, but organizations are not precluded from applying for those schools. They would just need to, there's a space within the application process to identify how you feel that there's a gap in services that your organization could fill. So there's recognition that the supports that are currently available may not serve fully serve the target population. Okay. We're going to pivot now to the OST program funding structure. These will be fee-for-service contracts awarded through this RFP. Fee-for-service contracts are contracts in which the invoicing and payment is made after the delivery of services. So I want to make sure that all applicants are aware of that. The invoicing is based on the number of youth that meet the minimum attendance requirement, and that is capped monthly at 110% of the awarded slots and is capped annually at the total award amount. So providers can invoice for more children than they are awarded slots to serve, but only up to 110%. And regardless, your invoice amount would still be capped at the total contract award. Awarded providers must are monitored monthly on progress towards those key performance indicators that we discussed earlier as part of the invoicing process. Okay, this is a review of the OST program funding. This is the current iteration of this structure for the 2023-2024 school year. As you can see, the OST program has identified minimum slot levels to serve any of the identified models. There is a school year monthly rate per slot that is and then a summer monthly rate per slot, which can equate to a total annual funding that will come into play primarily in the 2025 fiscal year, because the summer, July 1 is the start of the contract term. And so summer of 2024 would be in the next year's contract. For the current coming school year, the anticipation is that providers will receive the monthly rate per slot based on the number of children that attend a minimum of 2 days per month. And that is, I don't know if this is blocking, but that is true all the way through to the specialized providers as well. Okay. So a note about the K-8 school sites. As noted, it says here general and elementary middle school combined. I just want to note that it is not that we anticipate that you combine your program. The anticipation is that if you are requesting to operate in a K-8 school, that you are operating both an elementary model program and a middle school model program. The minimum slot level for all of that is 60 slots. Once awarded a contract for a K-8 school, your organization would have the opportunity to identify the specific number of slots that will be in the elementary model and in the middle school model within the total amount of awarded slots. And again, noting that in those situations, your program should again be delivering a model that is targeted to the elementary school and a separate model targeted to the middle school. If you have questions or need further clarification, we encourage you to put these in the Q&A today or submit via the Cognito link. This is a lot of information, and so we do want to make sure that applicants fully understand the fiscal and funding parameters of the program. Also, just another note that though for the 2023-2024 school year, the minimum requirement is 2 days per month. It's anticipated that that may go up in future years so that the threshold would be higher. Okay. OST program prerequisites. This is information that will be relevant to awarded providers. Prior to operating a program, OST programs, so actually prior to contracting, awarded providers will need to submit a compliant certificate of insurance to PHMC, and they will need to submit a budget in accordance with the RFP budget requirements and in an approved template. That will be shared, that information will be shared with awarded providers in June. For all general strategy, elementary and middle school models, prior to starting programming in September, you must have a PADHS certificate of compliance, also called a license. As mentioned previously, this information is in the RFP, and along with links to state resources around PADHS certificate around undertaking the certification process. If awarded slots, PHMC will provide some technical assistance to applicants that are not yet licensed at the sites, but the provider agency is responsible for completing the state's certification process. Also, another prerequisite is that any organization that is going to be operating within the school district of Philadelphia will need to undertake a set of activities prior to starting in September that include submitting separate insurance requirements to the school district of Philadelphia for review and approval, submitting all staff clearances for review and approval, completing a site collaboration plan with the school leadership, and complying with facilities and meals procedures. Those requirements are outlined in the RFP and the appendices, and providers who are awarded slots to operate in school district of Philadelphia sites will receive additional information on that process. But it is important that you understand the implications for program operations of undertaking those activities. So as part of that, there's recognition that there's some work that occurs after a contract is signed and before a program can operate. So we're for OST providers that are part of the current network and will be operating over the summer, they'll be undertaking some of those activities or have already undertaken them if they are continuing at those school sites in the fall. But we anticipate that there will be new sites awarded, that will be either new sites to organizations that previously did not operate within the OST network, or currently funded OST providers that are operating at new locations. So we are defining new sites as any site that the organization did not manage as part of a city-funded OST program during the 2022-2023 school year. Those new sites will be eligible for a startup award on a cost reimbursement basis for that will allow for $461.50 per awarded slot. So that is something to consider if you are seeking to operate at a new location. This funding can be used to cover costs incurred for securing the PADHS licensing or certification, staffing, so onboarding staff, outreach, recruitment, and pre-enrollment activities, and for those school district of Philadelphia sites for completing the SDP, the school district requirements. As part of that process, to secure that actual cost reimbursement-based funding, organizations will have to submit evidence of completing the above activities. And that is further outlined in the RFP on pages 47 and 48. This funding will only be available for July and August, and again, only for the new sites as identified above. Okay, submitting questions about the RFP. I appreciate the questions we're getting in the Q&A section. It looks like we've got 14 so far. I think that's wonderful. Glad to see it. We will work on getting you answers unless we're, I'll take a quick run through at some point during this presentation and see if there's anything I can clarify today. Otherwise, they will all be posted in writing on the website. There is a Cognito link, which I believe Greg is going to share in the chat. Thank you, Greg. So interested applicants can submit questions via our question form at this link. If you have already submitted a question in this session, you do not need to resubmit it via Cognito. We're going to take all of those questions submitted today as part of that process. Questions should be submitted by 5 p.m. Friday, March 10th. That's the end of this week. So dig into the RFP and get your questions together and submit them. That gives us some time. We will begin posting questions as soon as we're posting the responses to questions as soon as we have them, but certainly by March 17th, you will have answers to those questions. So let me just move on to the next slide. The application process. Before I go into this, I'm just going to run through the questions and see if there's anything that I can clarify that wasn't clear enough in the presentation. Otherwise, I will answer all of the questions. We will answer all of the questions. I'm not answering all of them. We will answer all the questions in writing. So there's a question about if our program serves both middle school and high school students, would we be allowed to apply for funding that covers the requirements of both models? So I believe that question is, that is a question I can answer, and it is answered in the RFP. If you will need to submit a separate application for each model and strategy at a site or at different sites. The only exception to that is if you are operating at if you were requesting to operate in a K-8 school, then you will be required to apply for both an elementary and middle school model. So if you are seeking to supply a middle school program and a high school program, that would be two separate applications. And I believe the second question again is seeking clarity on that requirement for the K-8 schools. If you are applying to serve a K-8 school, you are asking to operate within a K-8 school, then you will be required to apply for both a middle school and elementary school model. Some of the questions around the criteria that was used and the priority sites will be responded to via the website. There is a question in prior years. The application has questions about the content of our programs, activities, goals, and the likes. I did not see any questions in the proposal that ask that. If I've missed it, please point out which questions get at that. I would review the questions within the RFP. Those are the questions that are being asked in this application process. Again, questions about the priority sites will be answered on the website. Question about the minimum slot level. Does this mean that you must have space or capacity to apply for these numbers of seats? Yes, we have in reviewing the funding availability and the budgeting and the requirements for this program, the City of Philadelphia and PHMC has identified that there are a minimum number of seats required and a minimum number of slots that must be funded in order for the program to be fiscally viable. So those minimums are set. Providers cannot apply for less than the minimum slot allocations identified in the RFP. I'm going to get to the school question and the school principal's letter of support question in a minute. That's in this coming slide. I'm just running through the questions. Most of these will be answered in the website by the 17th, especially questions about the priority sites. There are a couple questions about the minimums. I feel like that I've covered that already. Please refer to the RFP. There's a question about K-8 schools and whether or not you will need 2 site directors. I would direct you to the budget requirements. I think it explains there that only 1 site director is needed for a K-8 school. Additional questions about the priority schools the priority locations will be answered on the website. There's a question about the startup cost of $461.50 for the startup period. So providers will be awarded a certain number of slots. If they are a new site, they will be eligible to request up to $461.50 per slot. So if you're awarded 10 slots, which is not actually one of the minimums, but I can do that math in my head. That would be $4,615. So I believe there is actually an example within the RFP of what one could expect for a 48 slot program. And I think it's around $20,000. And that is for the 2 months of July and August. It is not per month. It is covering the 2 months. There was a question about 10% of kids being outside of the host school community, and if this is for specialized also. That question will be answered on the website. Is the minimum number of slots for a K through 8 is 60? Yes, it is 60. The anticipation is that a K through 8 school does not necessarily need 78 slots to operate fully. Certainly providers could apply to request 78 slots, but it's not a requirement. 60 is the identified minimum and could be divided between the middle and elementary school models. I'm not quite sure. The anonymous attendee who submitted this question, it says, what if school only has one space for after school programs? I'm not quite sure about that question. You might have to provide either more information in this or through Cognito to clarify that question about the school space for the after school program. Okay. I think we, in the interest of time, I'm going to move us along and see if we can get through this presentation. And then if there's some time before the end, I'll see if there's any other questions that can be answered during this session. However, answers will still be posted to the website because our other organizations who are not on this bidders conference may want to hear those answers. Okay, the application process. Applicants must identify a specific site for which they are applying. Again, that could be a school site, a community-based site. It's pretty wide open. I refer you to those priority locations as well. Applicants must identify a strategy and program model for each site. If applying to operate an OST program in a K through 8 school, applicants must offer to provide both elementary and middle school programming. Applicants may submit multiple applications. Applicants must include a letter of support using the templates included in the RFP. So that is, there are 2 templates that are available in the application, the appendices. One is for school sites. If you are, especially if you are requesting to operate in a school district of Philadelphia site, that form must be signed by the school principal. If it is not signed by the school principal, it will not be counted towards the requirement. The only organizations that are not required to include a letter of support are those that are intending to operate programming at their own locations. If you have questions about that, I encourage you to put them into the Cognito link or into this Q&A, and they will be answered on the website. Each application submitted by an agency will be reviewed and scored individually. So as such, organizations should really be thoughtful about their applications. No application should be considered as the extension or addition to an existing other application. Each application will be reviewed and could be awarded separately. Organizations may not be awarded for all the sites for which applications were submitted, and applications so as I said, applications should not consider their requests for multiple sites to be linked in any way. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Rob Larimore, who is going to go through the web-based application. And I'm going to keep sharing slides for a moment, I believe, Rob, until you tell me otherwise.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Oh, you know what? Abigail, are you able to go back to the presentation? I think there were a couple more slides. I might have jumped the gun on sharing the platform. We want to take just a few moments to kind of walk you through the application portal and maybe provide you some useful tips as well. So,
Rob, is that screen visible now?
Yeah, to me it is. I believe so. Thank you. We will put these links in the chat for you so you can easily get into them. They're also posted on the philaocfost.org website. That will you can go to funding opportunities and find all of the links there as well. You can go to the next slide, Abigail. Again, all applications must be made through the website. These are a few of the things we're going to go over in just a second. We're going to show you how to register an account. We're going to show you how to add collaborators so that you are able to work with people in your organization. There might be some assistance you need from fiscal staff or other administrators to upload some documents. You might want to collaborate with some of your OST colleagues as you divvy up some of the questions that you'll need to respond to. We'll go over the finalize and submit. That way you can have an idea of what it's going to look like as you finish up your application. And several of our organizations, we anticipate you'll probably want to submit more than one application, and we'll walk you through a way to be able to copy an application so that you don't have to re-enter or re-upload all of the previous information that you've already submitted. So Abigail, this time I'm going to take over the share, and I'm going to share my screen so I can show them the website. And in just a moment, we will come back to the presentation. All right, so once you come to the website, you'll notice the different tabs at the top, and we'll look at those real quick. We'll show you how to register and log in just a moment, but once you are logged in, you'll be able to see all of your applications. When you click on home, you can see all the ones that you've done, your complete or incomplete, and you will also be able to change your password or view your profile. You can do all of those things as well from the My Account feature. Easily navigate there as well. So you can do it from two different places. The key dates are pulled directly from the RFP and are shown here. Again, we are here on Monday, March 6th. These next couple of dates will come very quickly. Deadline for provider questions, again, is this Friday. We will provide responses to all of your questions by the following Friday. We are hoping to be able to begin providing some of those responses as soon as tomorrow, and we will try our best to continue to update those responses on a rolling basis, but the final list will be posted on Friday, March 17th. And then proposals are due on the 31st and award notifications again in June. That was key dates. Here in frequently asked questions, you can click on submit a question, and that will take you directly to the Cognito link. We have seen several questions come in, both in the Q&A feature of this webinar, but I've also noticed a lot come in through Cognito as well during the meeting. So thank you for taking advantage of those. We want to encourage you, especially if you're having any specific questions about the accessibility issues for the submission portal, please submit a screenshot to help us understand how to best support you with that. This Q&A submission form will be open through Friday of this week, and then it will close. You can get into the responses to the frequently asked questions by clicking here. It'll redirect you back, and soon we'll begin posting responses here. We're in the bidders conference right now, and so these first two questions or these first two options will soon go away. But we will post, you'll be able to link to the recording of today's conference. We will try to highlight a few specific items for you as well, so you can quickly jump to the point in presentation where we discussed maybe how to add a collaborator or submit multiple applications or something like that. We have a resource page as well that is linked to provide a lot of the resources that, again, are included on the PHILA OCF OST website. So we are going to be going into a test application that I had set up. We will go over some of these features in just a moment on how to manage a collaborator. But you can see here, if it's not too small for you, that the application is designed so that even if you've not fully completed a section, you're able to move from section to section. You don't have to complete one section before gaining access to the next. You can move through all the way. All right, Abigail, let's go back to the PowerPoint. And we'll finish up the accessibility features of great. So the first thing you'll need to do when you go into the submission portal is to register an account. There are two different ways to do this. First, you can click on My Account up here at the top, and that will take you into the ability to create your own account, or you can click on Start Application down here. Either of these will get you started with registering your account. You can go to the next page. You'll enter prompts as directed, and we've seen a couple questions come in that yes, organizations can have multiple user accounts. So you don't have to just create one account and then share that. Your organization can create as many as are needed. I think there is a feature built into the application where only one user can be editing an application at a time. That is so that you don't duplicate work or delete someone else's work. And so you will get a warning notification if one of your collaborators is also in the same application uploading at the same time. And go to the next page. So we mentioned add collaborators. There is a button that I've underlined here. Manage collaborators. That is going to show up as soon as you have registered and started an application. That will show up every single time on every single one of these subpages. And so at any time, it's very easy for you to go in, manage collaborators. You will click on that. And I'm going to move my closed captioning so I can see. Can you go to the next page, Abigail? I think it shows, right. So you select add collaborator and then add their contact information. Their name and email address. They will get an email from you or from the web-based application that says you've been added as a collaborator to this specific application. It'll provide them a link, and they will come in, they will create their own account as well, and then they will have access to the application. There is one important feature about this, and it's identifying the primary collaborator. If you are the person who has created the application, who has initiated it, you are automatically the primary collaborator. You can designate someone else to take over that feature or that function if you would like to. Why it is very important is the primary collaborator is the only person who will be able to finalize and submit the application. So it's really important to know, especially if you're working up to that deadline on March 31st, that you know who the primary collaborator is so that they can finalize and submit the application. I think that will take us straight into what happens at Finalize and Submit. Again, only collaborators designated as primary may submit the application. This is your Finalize and Submit page. You will agree, you will click Save and Finalize, and I believe it gives you one more warning notification prior to submitting. You go to the next page, or the next slide, Abigail. Right. And so it's saying, hey, heads up, once this is submitted, you can no longer come back and edit the application. Now, there is a feature, if you're looking at all of your applications, you will be able to see withdraw application. But what that will do, I believe, is it will delete the entire application. So please make sure that prior to clicking save and finalize and submit, that everything is as you intend it to be for the reviewers to begin reviewing your application. Next, I think we want to talk about how to copy an application. This feature will copy all of the information included on the previous submission. You will definitely need to update some of that information based on the site name and based on potentially the site-specific questions regarding how you plan on leveraging relationships, partnerships at that specific site, or how you are going to tailor your recruitment and retention strategies at those sites as well. So, but this feature is designed to save you a little bit of time, cut down on some errors, and to allow you to get into your next application. So you will click on your complete applications, and Abigail, take us to the next page. Under applications, you'll submit copy application. You can see that in this yellow section here. Once you click on that, you will need to, it will give you the same name as the previous one that you've copied from. So you will need to update the site change. So if your first application was for school A, and now you're about to submit your application or initiate your application for site B, this is when you will change that site name. If you don't change the name, it will probably become very confusing for you when you're reviewing all of the applications that you're working on. So please make sure you change that name and then select make a copy. And I think that is all for that.
Okay. So this is just touching on resources that are available for your application submission. These resources are available at philaocfost.org. Again, the full RFP is available for download on that site. We also have, we will be adding for any organization that we recognize it's 200 pages. If an organization has fiscal constraints around that production of a copy of a 200-page document, you can request a hard copy to be mailed to you. Application forms and templates are available for download at philaocfost.org. The frequently asked questions will be posted there. There'll be a link to a recording of this bidders conference. We are going to try to either break apart the demo section that Rob just provided on the application instructions, if we can, or at least point you to where that at the the point in time in the recording where that starts. And then all the links to related city, state, and federal resources are also available on the website. So next steps, as noted, the recording of the bidders conference will be posted tomorrow at the link cited there. Links to that recording will be available on the philaocf.ost website as well as in the submission portal. Please again continue to review the RFP and submit questions via that Cognito link. We will be, as I mentioned, we will be working to begin posting questions and answers as soon as possible, but certainly no later than Friday, March 17th. Proposals are due by 5 p.m. on Friday, March 31st. Just reiterating that no late submissions will be considered. It is important to note that the submission portal will close. If you are in the midst of a submission at 5:01 p.m., you will not be able to complete that process. So we do encourage organizations to begin to put together pieces of your proposal. You can, as Rob showed, you can go in there and work on components of your application, save and return to it at any time. So you don't have to wait till the to the last minute. And we do anticipate that there will be greater traffic at the website on the final days of the final days of March. So please, again, consider getting things done a little bit earlier. We all know, I recognize that everyone is very busy, both running programs as well as trying to complete this request. Award notifications will be distributed in June of 2023 following review of all applications. Thank you all for your time today. We will again try to post questions to these answers to these questions as soon as possible. We encourage you to continue to review and submit questions that you have. Thank you very much.